Okay. But if you can imagine a triangle, I was hoping for an actual triangle.
I was pointing that philosophers saying that the person at the top should be a philosopher or king.
Yeah, yeah. So, but this is of course still with us. You think about how many different political science theories there has been ever since Marx, the Middle Ages, how people lived during the Middle Ages. You had these three different groups. You had the serfs, basically. You had the nobles, who were the ones that basically protected the community as knights and so on. And then you had the clergy, who were the knowledge seekers, right? So you know, the Middle Ages were basically structured on this Platonic division. So you end up, though, with the producers, the ones who are doing all the work, the physical work, are the ones who are rewarded by physical rewards. So pizza, you know, who likes pizza? You know, well, if you want more pizza, well, you've got to make the pizza. In order to make the pizza, you got to grow the grain, you got to milk the cows, you know, all that stuff, right? So there's a whole bunch of us, in fact, more of us, that are primarily motivated by physical things. And those people have a virtue. And that virtue, for that group of people, is temperance. You need to know how much is enough, right? Not only with your rewards, when you're eating pizza, you don't want to overeat. Plus, you want to share with people. It's wrong to buy a pizza for the family, bring it home, and go to the garage and eat it all by yourself. You know, you're supposed to share it with everybody that wants some, right? And even the dog, right? The dog will want some as well, right? So don't forget to share some with the dog. When you have a St. Bernard, you can't forget to share some with the dog. That's because the dogs are so big. Actually bigger than, she's about as big as I am, at least. So, big dog, really. In any case, temperance. You need the virtue of temperance in order to be a successful individual in the producers. The auxiliaries, there's lots of other, the spirited folks. In other words, their rewards are spiritual in the sense of social honors. I think of the football players that, you know, play for the high school team, that go out there and basically destroy one another, you know, and everyone's cheering for them on the side, push them back, way back, you know, etc. And they're out there just, you know, crashing into one another for the honor of the school, to be the heroes of the high school, or the Kansas City Chiefs, or you know, the military, or the police force, or the firemen going into the burning building. You think about all those different kinds of jobs where they're literally putting their own lives on the line for the society. So that group, basically, and so their rewards are primarily social or spiritual. And their virtue is courage. They're the courageous ones that put their life on the line, go into the fire to try to put it out. You know, all the firemen in California trying to keep the state from burning up, and so on. And then you have the oldest of the group. These are individuals that started out as kids liking stuff, but then probably sacrificed themselves by working for the military or something, and eventually getting old enough that now what they want to do is just learn for the sake of learning. So their reward is wisdom. And so their virtue is wisdom. So you end up with temperance, courage, and wisdom. And then the state has justice as its virtue. And these were the four Greek virtues later on, we'll add 3 more virtues associated with Christianity, and that's faith, hope, and charity, or love, right? Caritas actually means heart, right? Love. So when you think of charity or love, they're actually the same root. So today we would argue, in some circles at least, that there's 7 virtues, 4 Greek ones and the 3 Christian ones. Now, let's talk about the divided line. In the Republic, I like other diagrams of it. Shoot. Let's see if I can get a nice diagram. There, that's my favorite. So, this is kind of a little more than what you get in the Meno. Now we get the idea that what we experience can be broken up into different things. For example, I can have hallucinations. I don't know if you've ever had a hallucination or a nightmare. One of my nightmares is that I'm constantly looking for my office, and I'm in this just maze of all these offices and all these people sitting there with their books on their desks, and every door is it's almost like a Dr. Seuss picture, with everything, and I'm constantly looking for my office. And I started having that nightmare once they took away my office. I don't know what that about. You keep getting moved around and stuff. You're old, you don't need an office anymore. So I moved into my garage. All my books are in the garage, which interesting way to live, actually. My daughter would like to be able to park the car in the garage someday, but I don't know when that's going to happen. So we have hallucinations. You can imagine out, on a hot Arizona road and seeing things. The image of the guy that's in the desert, and he's, dying of thirst, and he sees a Coke machine, and so he crawls up to the Coke machine with, hope. There's, safety, and he gets up to it, and he's all disappointed because it's a Pepsi machine. So you have hallucinations, dreams, things that we know are not really there. But we see them, and we're aware of them, so we know about them. I saw this. I had a son who, in grammar school, saw President Lincoln walk through the wall. We called that psychotic. Is what we called that, Who knows? He probably still sees Lincoln in lots of places. I don't know. But in any case, that's real to you, but it's not real to anyone else. So it's a lower quality of visibility thing. So when we're seeing that stuff, we're thinking, wait a minute, these are images or appearances. And beliefs are even less secure in our knowledge than that. But give me a break here. So when we become more secure in our knowledge, it's primarily by going across the line and seeing visible things, real things. So when we're we're looking at real things, we feel like, okay, this stuff really exists. But as far as Plato's concerned, these are corruptible, constantly changing, they're not ideal. These things were created and will probably be destroyed. So in that sense, they're not permanent, and real knowledge for Plato has to be something that's permanent, right? So you have to go across still this other line and get to the area of mathematics. For Plato, who was a mathematician, and really, in fact, when you entered into the school, the academy that Plato set up in Athens, which was called that because a man named Academus donated the park to Athens, so it was named Academus in his honor. And that's where Plato set up his school, the academy. And on top of the wall, as you came in, it said, "Let none without geometry enter here." So basically, you needed at least an understanding of geometry to be a member of his school. And for him, mathematics is true knowledge. Remember, the word mathematikos is the word for a person who knows in Greek. Right? So it's abstract knowledge of mathematics. Mathematics, he thought, was permanent, unchanging. Today, he would have been horrified by our conclusion that mathematics evolves. Right? That we're constantly evolving new mathematics and so on. But if you go even further, the ideas, which we could not quite reach as far as Plato's concerned, are the ideal. So those ideas are there, they structure the universe, but we can only come close to it because our bodies are corrupting us. We're unable to know the ideas in their true form while we're still alive. So we're only going to be able to so you get the expression, "For now I only see things through a glass darkly, but once I'm dead, I'll see things face to face." That line, by the way, or something similar to it, was adopted by St. Paul, and is in one of his letters. And so if you're familiar with that expression from later after Plato, that's really a very Platonic kind of view. Sorry about the quality of the image. There's much better ones out there. However, okay. Now, the divided line, and we get the allegory of the cave. So, there's videos. Would anyone like me to try to find a video showing this? Maybe? I don't know if the sound works in this room, but I'll try it. Let's see. Oh, we're not getting any sound. Sound is on.
Yeah, they've been from their childhood to have their legs and necks chained so that they cannot move and can only see before them, being prevented by the chains from turning their heads around. Above and behind them, a fire is blazing to distance. They see only their own shadows, which the fire throws on the opposite wall of the cave. How could they see anything but the shadows if they were never allowed to move their heads? Between the fire triad and the prisoners, there is a raised way, and a low wall built along the way like the screen which puppet players have in front of them over which they show the puppets. You see men passing along the wall, carrying all sorts of articles which they hold projected above the wall. Statues of men and animals made of wood and stone and various materials.